Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
And tonight we got a returning guest, Mr. Randy Jackson from the Gasser Garage. What's going on, man?
Oh, living the dream.
Yeah, a little chilly up there.
But like I said, it's not warm. I'll tell you right now, I'm not a fan of this northern temperature. But I know it's way worse north of me because they got snow and we don't. So I can live with that.
Y'all get snow though, right?
Yeah, just not like they do. If you go to like Kansas City's about 60 miles north of me, they'll get snow all the time. We don't get snow like they do. And that's just that difference, but we do get it,
Gotcha.
But typically when we do, it's a bad thing.
It hasn't snowed in Florida for 35 years. So
no, it wouldn't bother me if it never snowed here again.
Yeah.
I've often thought, it's like, I think the best place to retire or to be, period, is like, I'm going to call it middle Arizona, around the Cottonwood area. It doesn't get like hot like Phoenix does, where it's 150 degrees, but it doesn't snow like it does in Flagstaff. It's kind of about in the middle, and it's about right. It'll be 60s in the wintertime in January or February, but it doesn't get 30s, and I could live with it. Oh, and there's no grass. You don't have to mow the grass. So,
well, I'm glad you didn't say Florida because we're full.
Yeah.
There's not much land left to buy.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Florida because it's a great place to visit. It's like California. Great place to visit. Wouldn't want to live there. Too many. I mean, of course, I sit here. I live in Tornado Alley, and you guys live in Hurricane Alley. So,
yeah, we're a little.
I can survive the dirt.
Usually, we're inland enough that hurricanes don't really affect us, but this year, the one that ran up and took out like half of the East Coast, that one was a little ridiculous. But
well, I think we all have something somewhere somehow, So
I mean, California, you have everything: fire, earthquakes, hurricanes, taxes,
idiots,
shitty government. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of everybody talks about how bad California is. It's really not a bad place. No. They have a lot of bad things going on there, but it's a great place to visit. But I wouldn't want to live there,
Definitely.
So,
and there's still some good places that sort of stay sane.
Yeah, if you're in the Southern California, the LA area, that gets crazy down there.
Yeah.
But like I've spent time up in the Sacramento area, and kind of not really Northern California, but the upper half of the state, and it's always been really good up there. And the people aren't so. People talk about how, especially from like where I'm at in the Midwest, it's like, oh, those people in California, they're crazy. Well, they're really not any different than they are here. We have just as many idiots in Missouri as they do in California. Just they're not as public, I guess,
Yeah, and California is kind of like a melting pot, kind of like Florida. We get everybody's rejects or retirees so it's like we always joke that leaves don't change, but license plates do.
Yeah. Could see that.
So what you been working on?
Well, it's more like what haven't I been working on? I got my bus, the engine and transmission put in my bus, my race car hauler. I don't know if you've seen pictures of that. I posted last week or so. On Thanksgiving, we closed the shop at work for Thanksgiving holiday. So my family does Thanksgiving like you did it, on the Sunday before. So it wasn't a big deal for me. So it was just, I would have just normally worked. But since the shop was closed, I got with my boss. I was like, hey, I'm going to pull the bus in and spend 4 days working on it. And so it now has a 12 valve and a 5-speed, and it's got I got the brake booster and master cylinder all mounted, and I didn't get the brakes hooked up. The clutch works. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do, but I put like 70 hours in on that thing in 4 days. So, it's four. It's from Wednesday night to Monday morning. That was a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, but I got a lot accomplished.
That's cool. Yeah, any progress is good progress.
Yeah, I bought that thing like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've had life just got in the way, and I didn't get to where I could make it run. And if I had another week, a solid week on it, it would probably run and drive. But I also was out of money, and two things you never have together is time and money. So
yeah, that's a constant struggle. And also the time thing, you get working on something and, for us, there's a podcast, or, we got to go print merch, or there's a car show we got to run off to, and then getting ready for car shows. You got a day or so of getting ready, and then you go. Turkey Rod runs a 4-day show, and, but really that whole week is killed by making sure the car is ready to go. Make sure you pack, make sure you got everything, make sure you know where everything's at, where if you do need something, you can get a hold of it quick. And fortunately, the 54 is like stupid reliable. So didn't have any problems other than a lost oil cap. So I had to spend $5 at Advance Auto Parts for that. But which is the only thing I can afford on that car. So
we put a few of those on the old 53, so I understand that. You just drive down the road and it vibrates and falls off.
Well, it was funny because it's kind of been the one thing that I was always like, cap is a lot looser than I feel like it should be, but it never had any problems, and it never really tightened. And I was like, maybe that's how it was supposed to be, and it's also 70 years old, so I'd be a little wore out too. And so we're driving along, and Ashley texted me. I didn't get the text message for a while, but we were probably 20 minutes from where we were going to stop for gas before headed to the house. And I looked down at my phone, and Ashley's like, something fell off the car. And I was like, it couldn't have been that important, because like the exhaust note didn't change, and I still got oil pressure, and like, I don't really know. I'm like, what'd it look like? She's like, round and like shiny. And I'm like, are you sure it was off of this car? Because shiny don't really fit with this one. And she's like, I think it was an exhaust clamp. And I'm like, well, it could have been, because that exhaust scrapes everywhere, but the exhaust didn't change, so I don't think so. So we pull up at the gas station, and she's describing it a little bit better, and I'm like, that sounds like the oil cap. Lift the hood, no oil cap. I'm like, hey, there it is. But fortunately, it doesn't carry a whole lot of oil in the valve cover, so it didn't oil everything down and smoke and make a ridiculous amount while I was driving to the auto parts store.
Yeah, those things don't. I mean, they got oil up there in the top end, but it's not horrible.
It's not slinging around like a small block
Chrysler. Yeah. My big block Chrysler, the drain back in those things are horrible, and it'll fill the top end up, and then it makes a big old mess. So,
but sweet.
Yeah, I got my bus done, and last couple years, I've been off and on working on this wheel stander for a customer. I've done a lot of work for this guy over the years, and he bought this 65 Dodge A100 truck, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and he conned me into building him a wheel stander out of it. So basically it's a clone of the little red wagon. And I know the guy, there's a fella in town that has got the actual last wheel stander that was in progress by Bill Maverick before he passed away. It's not done. It's in pieces and parts. The problem is and of course he won't sell it, but that's neither here nor there. The provenance of it, the paperwork that went along with it, got stolen, along with a bunch of car titles and some other stuff that idiot thieves, they broke into the building. They stole some, what they thought was a cash box, which didn't have any cash in it, but it had lots of other, and it probably went in a dumpster somewhere. Who knows,
Yeah.
So that kind of puts a little damper on the project, because there's nobody to verify that it actually is, even though that the people that he bought the truck from, could verify it, but there's no full proof.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to sell something like that, you got to have like legitimate physical proof. Anyway, so I was able to go take some pictures of the vehicle, take a bunch of measurements. And this one here is the chassis, the way the engine and transmission's in it is exactly like what, Bill Maverick built. So this is going to be as close to you can get. However, this does not have a 426 Hemi. It has a 392 Hemi in it with a blower. 426 Hemis are big money. So maybe someday it'll get to that. But right now, this is what we're putting together. So I did get it running this weekend, which first fire up on the motor sounded good. So let's finish getting the brakes hooked up, shift linkage, throttle linkage, stuff like that. And then we're, going to be able to, well, let's just put it this way. I'm going to do some wheel sticks with this thing in the street if I can make it happen. But you know how that goes.
Is it going to be...
It's not really what it's designed for, but yeah.
I was going to say, is it going to be more of like an exhibition that can do it, but more of just like a showpiece, or...
It's more of a showpiece. This guy likes stuff like this. I mean, he's not going to go run this thing at the drag strip and all that stuff and campaign it like a little red wagon. That's not what this is about for him. His is drive it to the cruise night.
Yeah.
So it does have a radiator. It does have a water pump. There's, it's a little more street friendly, but with 513 gears in it and a power glide in it instead of a 727 and a trans brake, it shouldn't really have any issue, raising it. So,
yeah.
But
that's kind of,
so
in a way, cooler because, wheel standers, like true wheel standers, couldn't drive more than cackle out, lay it up for a quarter mile, and then set it back down. And so seeing it on the road would be pretty cool.
Yeah. This one here's, like I said, there's a lot of give in this one, but I don't know that he's going to paint it up like the little red wagon, right? I mean, he wants something similar, but I don't think he's going to actually clone it, the little red wagon, so he's going to do his own spin on it, which is fine. I have studied several wheel standers. I even actually talked to Mike Mantell that owns the little red wagon. And a couple of years ago, I went to, when I started this project, I went to the duct tape drags with my boss, and we went out and raced a truck out there in Tucson. And Mike Mantell was there, and I, got to actually worked on the little red fire truck that day and helped him get it running. And I mean, I'm nobody, but he didn't have his normal guy there to help do it, and it wouldn't run right, and it just needed a tune-up. Plugs were crap and needed some adjustment on the injector. Nothing, wasn't like I really did anything, but
yeah,
helped him get it running. He made, passes down and back with it. It was pretty cool, so, but I got a lot of, insight into the wheel stander and how to make it work and what it takes to make that happen. So it was a little easier for me once I've talked to people like that to be able to recreate what it was,
Yeah, it's at the drag strip riot that's put on by Misfires down here at Orlando. There was the Wheeling Woody, or Woody. I can't remember the name of the car, but it looks like a 40s Willie or 40s Woody, and it does wheel stands. Yeah. And we didn't get a chance to see them go because they, you put vintage cars on a track, and then you get the people that just come to, oh, I have an old car, let me take it down the track, and oh, you didn't shut your AC off, or so there was a lot of slaps on the wrist,
downtime.
Now we gotta take care of this, and so. And that was the one time that I had struggles with the 54. It vapor locked. So I was a little concerned with getting it home, so I wasn't really focused on watching the racing. I was focused on trying to get the car to start and go home again.
You know how to fix that, right?
Yeah, put a small plug in it.
Oh, well, it doesn't have to do that. The thing sounds like to me it's a pretty good runner. I know Misty's 53, since I put the overdrive in it, wow, the difference in the way that thing runs down the highway. I mean, you can run, 80 on the highway if where the speed limit is. In Oklahoma on I-44, the speed limit's 80 miles an hour. So you can run that, but yeah, that car just trucks down the highway at 80 now with no big deal. But I did put a 250 6-cylinder in it, which is a little more cubic inch, but it really, the RPM range doesn't change any between a 235 and a 250, but
it does all right.
It sure does run a whole lot better.
Yeah, the motor itself runs good. It's just when it came, it had an exhaust leak. It really needs gone through. It's leaking, and if I'm going to pull it out, I might as well put something in it that's, got some power.
I tried to do that to Misty's car, but she was just dead set on a 6-cylinder and no power steering, which, in my opinion, if you're going to have a driver, it needs power steering.
Yeah.
It's just, but she loves it, and it's her car, so I don't have no say in it, So I had to put some other motor in that thing a long time ago, and there wasn't anything wrong with the 235 I took out other than it leaked oil, and I had this brand new motor that I bought, 2 years ago, and I thought, well, I'll put it in one of these days when I put an overdrive. Well, that finally came to fruition, so.
Yeah, I mean, that road trip to Orlando, it's about hour and a half, 2 hours. And it was also the first time that it got interstate driven. And I don't know how fast, but around 75 probably. The car feels like it's shaking itself apart. Up to about 65, 70, it was decent. Around 70, it started like shaking and violent. And the motor itself was running decent, but everything surrounding it. So if I'm going to go through it and do all that, Mustang 2 and all that, I'm just going to put V8 mounts in it, put an automatic in it. It'll probably have fuel, or it will have fuel injection, and I'll make it a nice, we're going to have, my car is going to be the grunge, no AC, no windows. So her car can be the one that, we roll up the tinted windows and enjoy the vintage air and go cruise somewhere where it's, comfortable. And then she can do whatever she wants to do on the outside.
Well, nothing wrong with the vintage air and a Mustang. Oh, yeah.
I was talking to, I don't know if you're familiar with Saul Customs.
I have heard, I know of them, but I don't know them well.
So he has a 4-door 54 that every time I see it, I'm like, that's goals. He was telling us up at their show, it's Murray's Rod and Customs, I believe, makes a Mustang 2 style suspension, but it uses Silverado control arms. So alignment is a lot simpler. Parts are, just go in anywhere and order, I think it's 07 to 13 or 14, whenever that body style changed. Ball joints, control arms, everything just kind of lays out. And it's a little more expensive, but I don't know. We'll figure it out at that point. I got to get other shit done.
Not readily available for that. Yep. Anyway, we went to Texas down there and drove the 53 down there, and on the way back, we had a tie rod end give up. It started wobbling, and I thought, well, this is a Mustang too. They ought to have the parts store, right? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Ain't no one. We pulled into Oklahoma City. There was not a tie rod end for a Mustang 2 anywhere in the freaking city.
Really?
And I was floored. So, if you use something '09 and up, we as hot rodders, everything's Mustang 2.
Yeah.
But you would think that you could just go to the parts store and get that stuff. Well, you have to think about that. They quit building Mustang 2s in 1978.
Yeah.
So, yeah, even though the hot rodders use it, it's still not, it would be nice to step up to something like that. So that might be a more viable thing for you to do,
Oh, and also even
even
small block stuff, even small block stuff. I remember when I was getting a starter, I didn't want to go with a big honking starter. I wanted to go with like a mini starter. And I ended up giving up and just ordering it from Jegs because Advance Auto had to order it.
99 Tahoe with a 350. It works perfect.
And it's like, but even just parts like that, it's like, dude, it's a small block. Like, there's still a whole bunch of small blocks around the roads, but the guy's like,
you're right.
It's LS or LT or the Coyote motor now, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And her car, if I come across a good deal on an LS motor, it'll have an LS in it, but
yeah. And I mean,
I wouldn't put it in an open hood car, but under the hood of that 54, they do look good when you can't see them. It's just an ugly motor.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong. And I've seen a couple of them that's dressed up, but by the time you dress it up, it's still.
Yeah.
I'm that guy that's got to have the Halabrand wheel. I don't want the aluminum slot. So the LS dressed up as a small block Chevy, I've done it. I did it. I've done a 36 Chevy Coupe for a guy 15 years ago. And we put an LS in it with a Magna charger, and I took big block Chevy cast aluminum finned valve covers and modified them to fit over the coils, so it looked like it had you opened up the hood of that car, it looked like it had a blown big block in it. But it was an LS, and anybody with a trained eye could see that. But at first glance, it was like, oh, look at that, Well,
that's like that company.
But you can't deny them. You can't deny the reliability and the availability of parts for them. It is the small block Chevy of now.
Oh yeah, and just like the Coyote motor. I mean, I'm not a Ford guy, even though that's what I'm building. It's got a small block in it, but the Coyote motor. I mean, there's guys out there. I think Brett LaSalle with a full interior car just won World Cup with the 630 pass.
Yeah. And
it's a stock block, stock crank with some precision turbos. And
the Ford version of the LS, they just, it's no different than their small block Ford. A 302, 302 or 351 Ford. Am I a fan of a Ford motor? No. Because every one of them I've ever owned has been a pile of crap. But that's just probably me, Well,
and they put the distributor on the wrong
GM
end.
and the Chrysler. Well, I'm not going to. You can say that.
It does make it easier to put it in stuff if the distributor's in the front. I understand that.
Yeah. But it is a hassle when you're trying to clear the blower dry. And it's not that way on a small block Chevy or a Mopar. So.
Yeah.
Because you know as well as I do, everything's better with a blower.
I know. I'm just trying to get on that whole be able to finance one. Though I am looking for a tunnel.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
I am looking for a tunnel ram and 2.4s because I put the motor in between the frame rails and it looks very, very puny with the 3 little tiny carburetors on top of it. So it needs something to get it up. And I either got to hope that a 671 or 871 falls out of the back of a truck driving down the road and I'm right there to catch it before it hits the ground, or rob somewhere to get one. Or with the
No,
fact that it's
they're
going to take a
around.
long time or longer time, I might pull the trigger and just start collecting parts. But I got to get rid of this 3 deuce intake first.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's that's still a. And here's the thing: get the thing running. You can always upgrade. Make provisions of it when you're putting the car together initially. And I do that with every one of them that I build. It's like, well, this thing needs a blower on it. I can't afford it right now, but I at least want to make provisions so that I can
yeah.
install it when I do. And so,
Well, I got all the pulleys
man,
for a blower belt, and they're already on the motor, and the small distributor, because the 3 deuce requires a smaller distributor. So I'm already there. I just need all the rest of it.
yeah,
But
I got that stuff. You know, I stack that stuff up, and everybody's like, "Man, you got so many blowers." I'm like, "Man, I collected parts for 30 years. That's how I." And well, you never sell anything. Oh, I'll sell it, but just because I got a deal on it
it's got
doesn't
to be
mean that,
worth it. Yeah.
like I got to replace it. That's right.
Well, that
So,
was whenever
but
I was talking to there's a gentleman up. He actually works for Don Garlitz. He's his mechanic, and I was talking to him, and he was
yeah,
like, "You might want to look at them carburetors." He's like, "Those aren't Super 97s," and I was like, "Pretty sure that's what they. I thought that's what they were." And I'm like, "I'm not arguing with you, but I'm just going off of what I was told." And he's like, "Look at them a little harder." And I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Because if they're not," he goes, "you're gonna have trouble." He said, "There's gonna be a lot of tuning to get those to get enough fuel in there." And I was like, "Okay." So I looked it up. They're not. They're not Super 97s. They're big 97s. And he's like, "You'd probably be better to put the 94s back on it and get it running with that. And then if you want to go super, then buy them." And I'm like, "Well, by the time I buy them, I would have enough money just to put enough carburation or start a stockpile of
well,
building a blower together."
I tell people that all the time. I mean, nothing's cool. I like a 3-2 setup
Yeah.
or even a 2-4 setup. Used to you could buy that stuff at the swap meet for a few $100 and it wasn't no big deal. But nowadays, it's $1,500 for a 3-2 setup or a 2-4 thing. Well, $1,500 goes a long way towards buying blower parts, and it'll run a whole lot better with a blower than it will with the 3-2s.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Now,
But that was
I'm a blower guy.
I got a good deal on that setup, and it come with some spare parts and stuff like that. So I got a really good deal on it. But I'm like, all right, I'm gonna sell it. And everybody's like, "Oh, well, you said you got a good deal. I want the homie hookup." And I'm like, "No, you should have been at Turkey Rod Run and spotted it before I spotted it." This
That's
year there
right.
was no
That's right.
deals at Turkey Rod Run other than one for a 460 big block. There was a 460 big block tunnel ram with, was it sniper? 2 sniper units all wired up, and the guy wanted like $800. And I couldn't find
That was a steal.
a small block tunnel ram with no carburetors on it for less than 600. I was like,
Yeah, I wish I'd have known was wanting. I had a small block with two carburetors, and it was a good one. But I sold it about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and
I
it
didn't
would have been perfect for you.
I didn't know
So
until I set the motor in there, and I was like, that looks like a little tiny 4-cylinder. The
I know.
the air cleaners don't even stick up over the cowl, and I was like, no. I'm like, there's nothing I can, like, other than spacing the air cleaners or putting like the tall janky like 12-inch filter housings on. There's no way to get it up to where it needs to be, and I can't chop it enough to get it down to where it would look sort of cool. So tunnel ram with the nice air cleaner, or if I can work some deal out and try to put a blower together, since the car's going to take a while now. But
Well, hey man, don't rush it.
well, and
It'll be there.
that's
So
part of it. And I said we weren't going to talk about it, but we'll talk about it. Whenever the original plan of it was to be more rat. And now that I'm going through it, I'm like, you know what? It doesn't have to be that ratty. So I'm going to actually repair the rust and build better. And it's actually going to look like a done car. I'm probably still not going to like shiny paint it, but there was a kid.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There was a kid at Turkey, and Ashley took a picture of it at the car show, and I was like, man, that's super cool. Super cool use of alternative paint. The whole car is Raptor lined, like a root beer brown color. And then they put flake in clear and clear coated it. So it had like some flaky in it. And I was talking to the guy, and the guy shows me pictures of the car, and it is way worse than my Model A. And he's like, yeah, man, I suck at bodywork. He's like, I couldn't get it straight. I tried, I couldn't. He's like, so I painted it with a little bit of texture. He goes, and now you can't see if it's not straight. He's like, I got it straight enough. We shot it. I shot some flake in the clear. And then he got somebody to hydro dip his firewall with the Constitution, and he did like all brass and copper accents. The car looked killer. Wouldn't have known that it was ever touched. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that. And Raptor Line makes a white and they have two different ones. I didn't know this, but they make two different bed liner materials. Raptor does. One is the high, like the one that everyone sprays their bed liners with. And then the other one is like more of a smoother, less aggressive. And I was
less. Yeah, I know what you're saying. We've used those inside beds of some of the trucks at the shop.
Yeah.
They do make it, and we use Raptor liner quite often. We actually use it like we've gotten so the last couple that we've done like frame off restoration. We'll use that on the bottom of the floor pan instead of like an undercoat.
Yeah.
We'll actually just use the Raptor liner on the bottom side of the floor pan, and it protects it way better. You know, Customer likes it. It looks nice. It looks like of course, we use the black. It depends on what car it is and whether, what the color of the car is. Some of them you want to do it with a different color. But, if the chassis black, then that will do that black too, But we've had some of them we've done different colors, and it looks real nice. It doesn't have that super aggressive look,
And it also, the Raptor line would
not
insulate a little bit too.
Material,
Yeah, so the Raptor liner would also insulate a little bit.
Also deadens the sound.
Yeah. Because like in a Model A, also, unless you build a second floor under the floor structure, it's kind of hard to put. I mean, especially if you're not going to have windows. Like you can't run carpet, so you really can't cover the floor with anything after you put insulation or, even the roll-on stuff. There's no way to kind of cover it up in a decent looking way. So anything that would prevent heat transfer or sound or road noise or, grime or anything, because, roads are crappy.
Yep. And also like on something like that where you're going to have an open roof, something like that on the inside of the floorboard is way better than trying to put carpet in it or something like that, So,
well, and that's what I had originally thought of. I had originally thought of using just like a black bed liner or that rubber type paint on the floorboard. One, so I don't bust my ass getting in and out of it, and two, because if it gets wet, oh well. Because the only window in that car is going to be the front window. So the windshield. Everything
I would strongly suggest putting some drain holes in it.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't fill up with water.
Right now there's plenty. No.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've got some of those cars too.
But yes,
I had to drill holes in my AFX car because it would fill up with water when it rained because it doesn't have any glass in it. So.
well, I was talking to a guy, the same guy, and was it Thursday night or Friday? Friday night. It poured in Daytona, and no wiper life. Ashley's 54 doesn't have wipers. They're there, they just don't work. And I'm like, yeah, we come out from dinner, and I was like, well, it's raining, so let's spray a new coat of Rain-X on it, and we'll go put her in the breeze and do the best we can. And he's like, yeah, I got caught in it too. And I was like, oh man, I bet you got soaked. And he's like, actually, I shut the windshield. He goes, we drove home, I didn't get wet. And I was like, that's cool. He goes, and it actually parked outside, and I come back out the next day thinking it was going to be filled with water. He goes, I took a towel and wiped off the condensation from inside the windshield. He goes, Rain-X the windshield again. It was fine. I was like, because I think he has like a 4.5, 5-inch chop. So there's not a whole lot of, unless the rain comes sideways, there's really not a whole lot of room for it to get in. I was like, interesting.
Yeah. I've rode many miles in an open roadster, so I know exactly what that's like. So
yeah. Well, a roadster, you got no shot. You're getting wet.
Well, it's the same difference in your car. If you don't have a top, you're going to get wet. Like,
I'm going to have a roof. I'm going to have a roof of some sorts.
A roof?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't decided whether I want to do... I was originally going to do snaps in the old rain gutters. That's not what they're called.
I know what you're talking about. It's like where
the drip rails
top would, yeah.
Yeah, the drip rails. So I actually have the drip rails, but I was just gonna run snaps down and just run it like a tonneau cover. But then, I was talking to somebody, and they're like, "And just order the Legacy sliding top." He's like, "Build a
yeah." That's what I was gonna say. I've seen those things. They look pretty cool. I've never used one, but
the one thing
they look pretty cool.
The one thing, and I was concerned about it, was how far back I'm sitting in the car, because we're sitting basically in the back seat. So
yeah. I'm
like, how am I going to see a red light? And that was the one kid's thing, was like, he's like, it's a sedan, so he has the long rag top. He goes, but 99% of the time, he goes, I slide it back about halfway. He's like, so sun is hitting my legs. He goes, but I'm still in the kind of covered up. He's like, but I can see. And then we also seen one at Turkey. I think Ashley took a picture of it. They had did a top like I was talking about, but they had taken and cut just over the driver's the driver's area, or driver and passenger area, and put clear vinyl and then sewed it in nice. So it was like a sunroof without it being glass. And I was like, that's kind of a cool idea too. There's so many ways to do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's part of the cool thing.
That's what we do. We just sit down and talk about how we can do things, and you bench race with somebody over the thing. You never know what you're going to come up with, because everybody's got a different idea about how they do things.
Oh, definitely. So, what car are you bringing to the hangout?
Well, we're going to bring the 53, obviously. Plan is to tow the dragster behind it, but we'll see if that, it's, we haven't, I haven't got that far yet. I had to order a new rack because the inner tie rod end was bad too on that thing, because it's got, quite a few miles on it. So I ordered a new rack for it. So it's supposed to be here this week. And so I'll get it where I can drive it. I'll hook the trailer on it and give it a test run before we get to that point. But definitely, at this point, it's going to be the 53. So
sweet.
It's too good of a road car, So
Oh, call
Everything
Uncle
I own is broken.
call Uncle Brian and tell him that he's a pansy for not driving a cool car.
Right.
I don't know if he's bringing the Lexus or
course.
the F-150, but either way.
I will say this: if that's still a month away, it could be 4 foot of snow here. Not saying that that's the case, but ice and snow.
Well, that's why he told us
good.
when he first said he was coming. I was like, "You bringing a cool?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "I got 3 states of snow between me and you. I'm not even trying that." And I was like, "Oh, come on, man."
No, it rarely snows in where he's at.
I'm like,
if he gets three snowflakes down there, they just shut the country down. Oh.
It'll be a good time. I've never physically met him, so it'll be cool to meet a bunch of y'all that I've talked to a shit ton. I just haven't got a chance to meet.
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to come back down and hang out with, Mr. Garlitz again too.
Yeah.
I got a couple of years ago, they had the 60th anniversary of my local track up here, was Mocan Dragway.
Mm-hmm.
He was the grand marshal, and I was very fortunate to get to go have steak dinner with him. And it was, that evening, it was pretty cool, and I had a good time. And so, I'm kind of excited, At the time, my car had a Hemi in it. Now it's got a flathead Cadillac, but, because the Hemi grenaded, obviously. So,
yeah, the first time I ever met him, I didn't even know it was him. And we got done, and we're walking away, and my dad's like, "Do you even realize who that was?" And I was like, "Nope." And he's like, "That's Big Daddy." And I was like, "There ain't no way." The guy that my dad was working for was really good friends with him. So they were like first name basis hanging out, and I was probably 10 or 11. And, I didn't even understand that those big names like hung out with little known people like us. So, but
hey man, they're just regular people like the rest of us.
Yeah, he's a really good dude. I actually seen him eating breakfast. We went up when we went and signed the paperwork to make it official that was the venue for our show. We had went to Cracker Barrel, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, "Hey, look over there." And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "That's Big Daddy." And she's like, "No, it ain't." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." She's like, "What?" And then we're walking out, and he has 2 of the Magnum Dakotas, and they both say Big Daddy on the back of them. And I was like, "I told you." And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "His house is like right behind Cracker Barrel. Like, he probably eats your breakfast every morning. Like, this probably isn't like a unicorn sighting." I've seen him quite a few times.
To be able to, it was, the first time I actually I introduced, had a friend of mine that I've known for a long time, and he deals with him all the time, buying and selling car parts, and so he kind of introduced me to him. And so while I was talking to him, I said, "Hey," I said, when you get an opportunity, would you care to walk right over here? And I would like for you to look at my car, my dragster, and just give me your opinion. That's all I want. I just need an opinion. I don't care what you say. I just want to know what you think about it. And he says, "Well, I can't walk over there." He goes, "But if you want to push the car over here, I'll be happy to take a look at it for you." And I was like, "Okay." So I looked at this guy, my friend. I was like, "Hey, why don't you help me move the car over there?" So we shoved the car over there, and his eyes got great big, and he come over there. He spent like 2.5 hours ignoring everybody at the drag strip, just chatting with me about the car. And he wanted to know about this, and wanted to know why is this and why is that. And he goes, "Well, where did you find this car?" And I was like, "Well, actually, I built the car." And he goes, "No way." He goes, "This car looks like it come from 1958. And I go, "Well, thank you." And he goes, I said, "I've got you to thank for that." And he looked at me and he says, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, I come to your museum. I took 700 pictures, not one of an entire car, but all the details."
Yep.
And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, really?" And I go, "Yeah." And I go, "Then I built this car." And he looked at me and he goes, "This looks like it come from 1958." He goes, "Chassis research." And I said, "Well, that's what it's patterned after, but it's not a real chassis research car." He goes, "You would never know it." And to me, that was the best compliment I could ever get. And he did sign the cowling, which, it did end up, the marker wore off now. But, I was very appreciative of him just sitting there wanting to talk about the car,
Yep.
So.
Well, it's funny.
He ended up getting to go.
It's funny because Chris Bumpus, Tidewater Fab, is his mechanic. And me and Ashley met him probably about a year ago now. And we had went up just to kind of scope out his Mopar show, to kind of scope out like how they lay it out for trash and stuff like that, to kind of get an idea for ours. And Chris was there, and he's showing us some of the stuff that, the public usually doesn't have access to. And he's like, yeah, and he's like, yeah, I was building a front engine car for me. And Don pulled him aside and went, "Hey man, that's really cool and all, but if you finish that car, you're fired." And Chris is like, what do you mean? He goes, "I can't lose you, so no." He goes, "Either sell the car or load your box." And he was like, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can't." He's like, that's cool and all, and I'm glad." He goes, "But you can build me dragsters all you want because they're never going to run." He goes, "You could build me cars. I trust you." He goes, "I know it's safe." He goes, "But no, you're not racing a front engine dragster." And I was like, that's kind of mean. I was like, "Where'd the dragster end up?" He goes, "Oh, so-and-so has it." And I was like, "Okay, so you're still building the car. You're just not building it for you anymore." And he's like, "Yeah." But to see all the history and everything that goes in, I'm like,
"Oh yeah."
And Chris is really, and it's a shame because he doesn't like talking to people, so he will not do a podcast. I keep working on him. He might come on eventually, but he's the one that just bought my 32 frame. And he's like, I was talking to him, and even when I went and dropped off the chassis, I dropped off the Model A chassis and the 32 chassis up there this weekend. And his coworker, another mechanic, was like, yeah, like, he's like, Don needed like these little brackets made. And Chris like looked at him and he was like, all right. And he went over and he goes, I looked over and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm making the brackets. And he's like, you didn't, what are you talking about? And he's like, he's over on the leg. Yep, that worked. Oh, nope, a little bit. He goes, his mind just works completely different. And I strive to be that way. And he's also a flathead, like, he's the guy that told me, he's like, you have to forget everything you know about small blocks and every other engine to figure out a flathead properly. And I was like, I just want to see the inside of him. And he's also the one that said that flatheads are the most money you'll spend to go slow.
Yeah, he's not wrong. Now, I will say this. My Cadillac flathead, it actually runs really well. However, it's also, I've got more money in that motor than what I have in the blown alcohol big block that's in my other car.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day. So, but, when you're talking about pistons and rings and stuff, that's the same. It doesn't matter what you build it. I mean, set of forged blower pistons is $1,500. Doesn't matter if you're building a Hemi or small block or a flathead. They're all the same cost.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the expenses, is like on my flathead Cadillac, the timing cover on it is a one-off thing.
Yeah.
It took months to build that. And, it's a cast aluminum cover that somebody had made that I had to modify, but it took months to design that. And it's the only one there is. So if you figure any time at all into it, I got way too much time, So,
and he
I hate to say it, but time is money.
Oh, definitely. And he has a unique perspective, but he has to. If you bring him a flathead, he doesn't care in what condition or what stage of the build it is. He wants to take it down, and he wants to see everything that's in there, because at the end of the day, it's not the first guy that worked on it that's going to get blamed if something goes wrong, even if you didn't touch that part.
No. That just means he's a good mechanic.
Oh, and
because any mechanic with his salt
beautiful, and they run. I mean, Brian Gilmore, the guy that I originally bought the 32 from, he built the motor in his Roadster that just went to Trog, and Ryan called him and was like, "Dude, I don't know what you did to this motor." He goes, "But I'm putting bus links on these people." And he's like, "Okay, well, be humble, because if you're not, your car won't run in the morning." And sure enough, somebody broke a spark plug off and messed with a valve, and like they did a bunch of stuff to his car overnight. Not a real car guy, but he was running his mouth and he got called on it.
Well, it happens.
And I feel like and we just recently took a step back and was like, make car shows fun again. Because I was falling into that, like, hey, I'm busy, I got stuff to do, like I can't talk to you. And that was the part of the car stuff that I enjoy, is like sitting down and bullshitting with people. Yeah, I don't like the fact that I get carried away and 10 minutes turns into an hour. Like Ashley found out last night. We stopped at an old friend's house, and I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll leave in like 10 minutes. She goes to the car. I'm like, yeah, I'll be there in like 10 minutes. An hour later, I walk out and I'm like, I promise, like 10 more minutes. We'll, just talking and catching up and everything like that. And it's like, okay, well, and that's the same with car show. Like I'll stand there and talk, even if it's not a car that like I'm building or I'm interested in building. Like, why'd you do this? Okay, so you did that because of this. All right, that makes sense. Or pick up little things that you can attribute to a car you're working on, or just put it in your memory bank for that guy solved that problem that way. So if I run into that problem, I kind of got an idea of which direction to take to solve the problem. We need more people like that.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, go find the old guys, go have lunch with them, go to coffee or whatever, breakfast with them, because those guys will teach you more. I do that when I'm in town on the weekends. There's a group of them that we go have lunch on Saturdays, and the restaurant, I'm in the text chain. I'll get the text message. Oh, we're going to go eat here or go eat there. Yep. And it's never really too much of we try to get all the local restaurants, but we've got I don't even know what the schedule is, but Terry, the guy that kind of heads it up, he has a schedule of all the restaurants, and he just, sends a text message out on Saturday morning about 10 o'clock. Hey, here's where lunch is today. Yep. And so it's also a kind of a treat. Hey, where are we going to eat lunch today?
Yep.
And you go there and you show up at 11:45 and you hang out and you try to drive your hot rod if you can. And, that's what they do. I don't have one that runs right now. So I have to drive somebody else's or whatever I'm working on or something like that. But most of the time it's just my daily, but they don't care about that, but they do it because they can.
Yep.
And
that's what our third Sunday cruising was supposed to be. I wanted to model it after, the old heads getting together, having lunch. Because I remember, I never got to experience it. I was too young. But I remember hearing stories of, I'm working on this, I'm having trouble. They go over there and you get to bounce ideas. And it's not just one person you're bouncing ideas off. It's 5 or 6 guys that have knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
And it turning into, well, where's the car at? Oh, it's at the house? Okay, I'll come by your garage. Whether it's that afternoon or during the week or whatever, and solving a problem. Or, hey man, I'm on the hunt for this part and I'm having trouble. Okay, well, I happen to have one. I'm probably not going to use it. come grab it. Kind of like the
It
Bolt
happens more than
situation.
you think.
You know,
Yeah.
the Bolt situation. I didn't know who to ask. You heard it on a podcast. I needed this bolt. Hey, I think I got one. Okay, cool. I'll send it to you. Awesome. Thank you. You know, there wasn't, you know, you didn't know me from Adam, but it's just another car guy helping another car guy. And
Yeah,
that's kind of what I was hoping that the cruising was going to be, was like, you know, get together. And the podcast itself is all cars. So, and last month we had a couple Hondas, we had some other tuner cars, and then, you know, we have old stuff, so we bring old stuff too. And guys that were around our age, we had a couple mini trucks, we had a lifted truck. Like, it's kind of growing because even the young kid we met a while back, you know, he wants to get into cars, but the barrier of entry, where do I go? Who do I talk to?
Well, I hate to say it, but, you know, I grew up, I mean, my first car was a Model T. I still have it, Model T Coupe. I built the car from scratch. But back when I built that car 35 years ago, you could buy a Model T Coupe body for $75 that was usable.
Yep.
And nowadays, to buy that same car body, it's $3,500 for a body. And I mean, and it's terrible that it costs that kind of money. It's just, you know, the days have gone that the $100 car bodies around, but the guy that has the, you know, 1994 Honda, that he can get into that car for $500, $600,000 and have something to drive. And it doesn't matter what it is. Is it my cup of tea? No. But I can appreciate the workmanship that it takes to build all of them.
Yep. And the one kid in the Honda was like, yeah, I want to get into old stuff. He's like, but this is what I can afford at the time. And I was like, that's awesome. Come out. Eventually, I said, if you keep coming, I said, eventually one of these old guys that's got that project car in his backyard that he's going to get around to fixing is going to realize that he ain't going to get around to fixing it. And maybe you can work out something where, whether you got to do something for him plus some money or whatever, but this is where you make those connections, that now you have a friend that also, even if you don't get a car from these people, if you come up with a car and you're trying to figure something out, you know, you can ask them, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do cow steering. Okay. So this is what I would recommend. This is how I would do it. I'm not saying it's right, but this is how I would do it. Okay. Well, you get 2 or 3 opinions, and then you go with the opinion that you think is either going to be the easiest for you to do, or somebody goes, hey, I'll come check it out and we'll make something happen. And now you got a friend for life. You know, I don't know nothing about Model A's, and there's not much Model A left on my Model A. But people identify with classic cars, and now they want to have a conversation with you. You know, driving an old car to a gas station turns into a conversation.
Turns into a car show everywhere you go.
Know, and that's the thing. I don't know how many times, and it took actually a little while to realize that. But like when we took it to the Shiny Car Show for my birthday, and the guy took a picture of us, I knew she was hooked, because she was like, that guy just took a picture of us. And I was like, yep. And I was like, that's pretty cool, ain't it? She's like, yep. And I'm like, well, there you go. And it was everybody walking up. And I mean, we were in a sea of shiny cars. We were the only rat rod there. And people coming up. Is this a 30? Is this a 54? Yep. Oh man, I took my wife on our first date in a 54. Or my grandpa had a 54 and he used to let us drive it around the farm. Does it still got the 3-speed on the column? Nope, it's got a 5-speed. Oh man, that's cool. How'd you do that? You know, man, it's low. Yeah, it's low. Oh, what'd you do? You know, or talking about, oh, we used to do this with the headers, or we used to do this with the intakes, or that, you know, and little stuff that has come in handy because when it vapor locked, I was like, oh, it vapor locks because the fuel line literally runs across the valve cover. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's probably getting a little warm. So what are we going to do? We're going to run new fuel line, and we're going to keep it away from all exhaust items. Oh, looky there. It doesn't do it anymore. It's like, but without, if somebody doesn't have the knowledge and they're not willing to put themselves out there, you can't get that knowledge. You can only beat your head against the wall so many times before you're like, ouch, this hurts. I don't want to do it anymore. Some of us are a little more hard-headed, and it takes longer to realize that. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And putting air suspension on the front end of a Model A and hiding it is retarded. Don't do it. There's a reason that nobody does it. It sucks.
There's a reason why they all use a straight axle.
I have a straight axle. It just has air ride on it.
I know.
And it's like, now I realize why that's not a common thing. Because
I've got the suspension on my Model T that I built when I was, 15 years old. I don't have a typical buggy spring on the front of it either. I mean, I actually made the axle. The original, I took a factory early Ford, like a 40 Ford axle, and I cut the center of it out, and then I welded a Ford Econoline van ends onto the axle to make my own drop axle. But my dad taught me how to do that. Mm-hmm. My dad was a machinist and a welder. He was a tool and die maker, so he taught me how to do all that. And I fabricated the axle, built a jig to make it all right. I still have the jig today. I could build another axle for that car if I wanted to, right out, now. Mm-hmm. But most people, they're like, well, you mean you welded that axle together? And I go, yeah, it's been in there 200,000+ miles. It's never broken. And they just think that you can't weld on it. I'm like, that's cast steel. Cast steel, you can weld on it.
Just gotta get it hot.
There's a certain process. Because it's a process. You've got to heat it with a torch. You've got to weld it hot. And you've got to let it cool slowly. There's a way to do it. But me learning that process because my dad he had that knowledge. Yep. I was very fortunate growing up to have my dad to do all that stuff. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything my dad couldn't do. And I'm basically the spitting image of it. And my mom's like, if she needs something done, she'll call me and say, hey, can you do this? I know your dad could. I figured you could too. Yes, Mom, I can do that. Yep. The question is it cost justified? Yeah. There's certain things that I can do, but at what cost, And so I have to weigh that option as well,
Mm-hmm. Because time is money.
But because time is money. So.
And I have, because of that car, posting and talking on the podcast about it, I got asked at Turkey when we went to the Rat Rod Bash. Somebody noticed, like, oh, you're him. And I'm like, yep, that's me. And he was like, where's your Model A at? I'm like, it's at the house. I'm like, it didn't get done. It's not here. He's like, oh, so you're hiding the air suspension. I was like, yep. And he's like, so how's that going? I'm like, it could be better, but I'll get it done because that's my goal for that car, and it's going to be done. And he's like, oh, I'm thinking about doing it on my car. And I was like, don't. I said, go on Village Customs and order their kit, or look at their kit and build a kit similar. And he's like, yeah, but the airbags are on the frame. And I'm like, yes, and you have 0 kick-up. I'm like, you don't have to worry about exhaust. You don't have to worry about motor mounts. Everything is right there. The frame in the front is flat. I said, and if you really want to go crazy, I said, check out his rear stuff too. Because his frames are flat. He uses cantilever front and rear. It's a very good system. And he's run them on Model A's all the way up to his Hummer. Has the same systems on them. I said, just get thicker. That's the way to go. It's way cheaper. You'll beat your head against the wall way less. I said, you'll not look at it like, this is not ever going to work right. And then Eddie Wise, another guy from Model A Mafia, has my setup. and he actually still has the arms, but his axle is in front. So his axle is actually in front. So he went off of, it's a split wishbone system, but he actually mounted the bars behind it, so everything lays. So he only has like a 4 or 5 inch kick up in the front, and I'm like, that would have been smarter, but I didn't know. I couldn't figure out why nobody did it. Now I know why. Lessons learned. But I'm not.
That's what I was going to say. You learned a lesson,
but I'm not cutting it up, and I'm not cutting it up again, and it is what it is. When it's done, I figured out a way to make it work. Could it work better in a different way? Yes. If I did it again and I wanted to hide the front suspension, there would have been a better way to go about it. But the frame has a 14-inch kick up, and I'm going to use all 14 inches of it. So
there you go.
But and when with everything happening, going through it and making it a little nicer and not as rat, which when I say rat rod for everybody on the podcast world, I'm saying Hot Rod Magazine's version of rat rod, not I welded spider webs on my roof rat rod. That word has changed. That's not what I'm talking about when I say rat rod. I feel like I have to clarify.
I understand that.
Yes, but rat rod offends people, and
I'm one of those people, because my Willys pickup's it's rusty old cab, and the front fenders are primered, and it's just the bed's primered, but the fenders aren't, and it's in process.
Yes,
one of these days it will get painted. But right now, people's like, "Oh, it's a nice rat rod," and I'm like, "No, it's a hot rod. There's a difference."
Right.
Just because it's unfinished doesn't mean that it's. I'm like, you know as well as I do what a rat rod really is. When they're welding,
yes,
fence posts to the side of the car.
But
okay,
when that term was coined by the editor of Hot Rod Magazine, it was an unfinished hot rod.
I understand. But, in February, they'll have they have a big car show in Tulsa, and it's Daryl Starbird's,
yes,
deal. And I go to it every year because, it's local. I know the guy that puts it on, that does the Rockabilly Bash, and he'll call me and it's like, "Hey man, you bringing something?" And he's already been after me about bringing one of my cars down there. And I always try to go support the people that are local to me. I don't care what it is. There's a bunch of rat rods, like legitimate rat rods there, but the people love it.
Yes.
I mean, the crowds that come out to that car show, it is insane how much and there's guys that build them purposely to go to that.
That is
great.
So that is, and I'll clarify this on the podcast. I will not purposely build that car shittily or try to make it more shitty than it is. That's not my style. Do I like the shock factor? There's a gentleman with Florida Rats and Rods. He has a Jeep, and it's got like wrench gas pedals and skeleton hands for mirrors and skeletons for the cup holders. I always walk around it because every time you walk around it, you find something else. That's not my style. But if that's what you want, do it. To me,
the question is it's about the craftsmanship. What the quality is. If the quality is good and that's your style, and that's the thing about the cars that are down there. Are there the crappy ones? Oh yeah, there's always going to be the crappy one.
Yes.
However, most of the guys that building the cars specifically for that, they actually take the time to legitimately, if the craftsmanship is there, is it my style? Absolutely not. However, I can look at it and see the craftsmanship that they put into it, the effort and the quality of work. That's where I look into it.
Oh yeah, and definitely. And when you go Like the Bad Apple, for instance, that's the one trophy that I want to win, and Ashley won it. So, way to go!
Congratulations, Ashley.
Thank you.
I'm never registering the 54 under my name ever again. So just, I don't even know why I registered under my name anyway. It was her car all along. But pulling in, I mean, there was customs, there was definite rat rods. There was nice examples of unfinished hot rods. There was done cars. Eddie Wise and Andrew Savage, the Model A Mafia guys, those are done cars. Eddie Wise's Model A, he probably has close to 1,000 hours in B-rolling in his interior. That is a done car. But he was still there. And then there was, Michelangelo. It's a patina car. It's original paint. I didn't purpose that car. There is nothing purposely done to that car. Even to the fact of it doesn't even have like Poppy's patina on it. I bought $16 flood Pentrol and it shines it up enough for it to look good. We got to reapply it every 3 months. Oh well. But there was custom cars that were flat black. There was, Hannah Wheat with her welding rig, Corey Wheat with the 41 Dodge Rock Bouncer. There's a collection of everything, and it was so cool to see not one there was even a lowrider. We parked in front of a lowrider that the whole car was done like Misty's roof. And, interior gorgeous. And what I like about those type of shows, because I'm not a big car show, like the trophy car show guy. But what I like about that is there was no one there that was like, why is that here? It was, okay, that's cool. Or you could pick something out on every car, and everyone even walking around, it may not have been their style, but they picked something out to say nice. Oh, I like how he did this, or, I wouldn't have done that, but, that's cool. Or the craftsmanship, like you said, and it's functional. They're not just like gluing license or, cutter screw and license plates to put a license plate there. It's a functional piece. Those are the ones that I'm kind of like, okay, that was pretty ingenious. I probably wouldn't have used what you used, but it fits the car. So that it's kind of cool to see people pushing the envelope and the shock factor. I mean, if everybody had the same stuff, it would kind of suck.
You're right. You're right.
I feel like a lot of times you get in a checklist, and I'm not going to mention names, but I have a few people that, and I would call them friends, but they're one way, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't have a 32 grill and it's not on a Bolin Brothers chassis, and you don't have this and you don't have that, and it didn't have steel wheels, it had spokes. Why does it got steel wheels on it? Because I wanted steel wheels. Oh, well, it didn't have big wheels. Well, guess what, bud? In 1929, it had 19s. I only went up an inch. It's not like I went from a 14-inch on the 54 to a 22, which is probably what's going to end up happening. But, I'm not straying that far away. I'm just building it for me.
And that's what it all should be anyway. Well, build it how you want to do it.
And that Model A build is going to be me. When it gets done, it's going to cost somebody a house payment to get it from me until I find something cooler that I want to try to build or do something different. And then it'll be, hey, I need money for a project. I'm ready to actually sell it for what it's worth. Her 54, you probably couldn't buy it for $1 million right now, because I kind of like the car. It won a Bad Apple now. So till we get off of that high, that car's expensive.
Yeah.
But there was also times in the Model A build that if somebody would have walked up with double cheeseburger combo meal with a side of fries and a large sweet tea, I'd have probably helped them load the car up.
We've all had those days, trust me.
You know, but
there's been some like that with the race car. Like, I just want to just leave it at the track and go home. It's like, why?
Yep.
No, I'm mad. We're not friends, you know. But it is what it is. But the days that you do get to go make a pass in that car and it pulls the front wheels off the ground 2 feet in the air and you're banging gears and it pulls the fastest pass it's ever done, that moment right there is worth all of the heartache that you had to go through to get there.
Oh, when we were doing the conversion on my bike, I would throw something, or Ashley'd be in the kitchen. She'd hear me cussing up a storm and, you piece of shit, and why won't this work? And it's supposed to go together. Why is it not going together? And, you know, tired tools falling down, I blame it. They fell down. I didn't throw them, but, you know, that stuff. And come out and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I almost lost it. Because then it would go together, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool. Everything's right in the world now. And it's when you get in a rush.
It's always something dumb.
Yeah, and 99% of the time, that's exactly what it is. It's dumb. It's stupid. It's something that you've done so many times that it's in the routine, but, you know, you stepped in dog shit, and now you forgot to plug the lights in, or you forgot to hook the chains up, or you forgot to flip the... I drove the trailer to... I forget where we stopped to get gas, but I drove the trailer with the 54 on it, with the trailer completely unhooked. All it had was the chains hooked up. I never flipped the keeper, and we got like 20 miles down the road. I got out, and I'm like, why is that up? Flop. Oh, okay, that's probably not good. We broke a strap on the 54 and got to her mom's house, and I'm like, that car sits back a little bit. We strapped it back in. I didn't even realize it had rolled backwards. So both straps were holding it forward. Not one of them was holding it back. We got to a gas station, and I hit my shin on the exhaust pipe, and I'm like, that exhaust pipe's sticking out really, really far. But yeah, the whole car was off the back of the trailer. Them straps were doing a good job holding it on with the windows up, and now you can't get the door open. So I could get my arm in enough to put it in first gear and bump the starter to get it up where I could open the door to get in the car. It's like, it's silly stuff that you just miss, or you get out of routine, something happened. And that's why it took me so long to leave for Turkey. I decided Wednesday night that I was going to drive, and every time I'd go out to the car was loaded up. I'm like, I'm ready to go. And then something would happen. I would get distracted. I'm like, okay, I'm fixing to go for 2.5 hour drive. Like, this stuff has got to be right. So, all right, let's regroup, go back through the checklist. Okay, I'm ready to go. It was a good time, though. Turned out to be a good time.
Yep. That's good. Glad you guys had a good time.
You ready to give the only date that matters?
Yeah. There's technically 2.
Go ahead. Oh, there's 2. You're right.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah, 2.5.
So this weekend, the 15th, is our cruising at Chili's in Inverness. Meet you there at 11, give or take.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the real date you're talking about is January 4th at Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing. The Hangout. All vehicles welcome. There's going to be podcast sponsors and car club picks, food and merch vendors, or raffles. There's going to be 50-50. And remember, this is in benefit for the Ryland Strong Network. So come out, support us, support the Ryland Strong. And
when you hear this, registration's over.
Yep. It's been over.
Ashley's putting her foot down. She gave y'all another week. She ain't giving you no more time. And I didn't even have to, threaten her or anything. She says we're done. All right, guys. Till next time, go check out BP Customs on Facebook.
Check out Throttle Attic using code word HOTROD for 15% off.
Go show Johnny Jalopy some love. He did the show logo for the Hangout on Facebook, YouTube, JohnnyJalopy.com.
Check out Low Income Clothing, Low Income Photos, and Brahmagan Media on Facebook, Instagram. Father and son team. Killing it.
Make sure you go show Wrenching for the Future some love. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Trying to get kids back in the shop. And also, go book an appointment with Ty Blends with Top Notch Barber Studio on Booksy.
And shout out to our food vendors that will be, once again, at Don Garlits Drag Racing Museum, January 4th. Come out. Rat Rod's Wood Fire Pizza. Check them out on Facebook. Donut Envy of Gainesville. You can check them out on Facebook and Instagram. You have got to try their lemonade and mini donuts on January 4th. Oh my goodness. And also a huge shout out to Rudy's Delicious Dogs. You can find him on Google, also at Allstate Insurance in Bellevue, Monday through Friday.
And also, there will be empanadas at the 4th. They don't have a business name, so.
Nope.
I appreciate Randy Jackson coming on.
Yes,
shout out to Gasser
you.
Garage. Good catching up with you.
Thank you, man.
All right, guys. Till next time, get out, drive your shit.
See ya.
Later.